Ja Morant comes back next week. I'm very curious to see what this Draymond suspension is, especially thinking about Ja's suspension. Ja Morant comes back next week. Does he solve the Grizzlies' problems? They're 6-16. They are 5 games outside of the last spot in the play-in. And Seth, their offense has been not great.
They're
Not great.
28th on the season, a little bit better the last 2 weeks, but still, they don't have a lot of bucket getting, and they don't have a lot of dynamism. And Desmond Bane has been like everything you could have asked for him and more. There's just not a lot else there. Jaren Jackson, I think, is probably someone who we would hope would be helped by having their best creator back. So, the good news for them is even as big a hole as they dug themselves, 5 games over 60 is not like insurmountable, but that's a big hill.
I mean, look, guys, the honest truth is like I don't know if they have that. And it's not just so much Ja. Man, they've been decimated in the front court with size. I mean, like before the season even started, the Steven Adams knee injury, Brandon Clark with the Achilles tear late last year. They just don't have enough size. Jaren Jackson and Jaren Jackson will look better once he gets Ja back, and his stuff will improve there a little bit. But I mean, it's been kind of a down year for him. I honestly feel like this is a gap year for the team and the organization, and to really kind of figure out what are the next steps going forward. I think this is a big year. Not saying it's impossible, but also in the Western Conference. Like when you look at the top 10 in the West right now, it's shocking. Houston's number 9. That's wild. But like Pelicans, Houston, Phoenix, and Clippers are in the top 7 to 10. Warriors are just out, or actually 2.5 games out at 11. Like, who are they replacing in that?
Right.
And I think that's kind of the stuff we look at, and I just don't see them really, really kind of making that trip.
They need to play really well the rest of the season, and they need to get some help. I think the team, if obviously if you asked us, I think the team we would expect is Houston. That would be the one we would expect to regress the most. But then, as you say, then they also have to, if Golden State rights themselves a little bit, does Golden State drag themselves into a play-in spot ahead of them? So I think that they need, it's their destiny is not really in their hands.
And on top of that, like we're talking about a team that they can climb up. Have you guys watched Portland lately? Like they're in scrappy in games. I don't see them getting in the play-in tournament, but like they have the same record as Memphis. Like they can go on a run the way they've lost 4 straight, but they've been really feisty in a lot of those games. I think it's not a wild. I think neither of these teams make it. I think Memphis is just a gap year. I don't think there's much of a fix with Ja coming in.
And Memphis, look, man, they got to figure out how to sign my man Vince Williams, VCU Ram. 2-way player. That's what they got to figure out. How do we get this guy on our roster going forward? I don't know if their offense is going to improve enough to make that big of a difference. I mean, this team has not really set the world on fire in the half court anyway. And Mo, you kind of hit the nail on the head for me talking about their front court issues. They are over reliant on second chance opportunities. They are over-reliant on Steven Adams and Brandon Clark and what those guys bring, and they don't have a way to fill that gap. So even when they get Ja back and they have that elite drink-stirring guard, Bane gets to slide down as far as his level of importance and play in that secondary guard role. Jaren gets to slide back to his role. They still just don't have the other pieces that really make their offense functional. So I just don't know if they're going to be able to get hot and win. We'll see. I mean, obviously you add a player of Ja's caliber to the offense, it should improve. But the last few years, it's not like it's been that great. So it may not be enough. I'm with you on the gap year.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, just the offense has been a struggle, in the half court for a little bit. Like this is one of those things where it's all been dependent on Ja getting to the rim and those things. And granted, That's a good strategy. That dude gets to the rim quite well, but I still feel like these are issues I had last year with them offensively in the half court. And I wanted to see more variations with things, and Bane's going to help a lot and with all those stuff. But man, that's all I got.
Are you guys following this court case at all? The Ja Morant court case?
No.
I'm not I wouldn't say I'm following it, but I am laughing at it. I've been sent like a few clips. There was apparently he had to demonstrate checking a ball like in pickup for some reason. I just, it's amazing. What an amazing time to be alive. Now we know, like, is it constitutional? Like, is the way we check the ball constitutional? I don't know. I guess maybe we'll find out.
Can I make a basketball point before we move on, please?
Yeah.
No.
So I think if one wanted to be optimistic about the Grizzlies, you would say that there's some low-hanging fruit for them to pick. They're 26th in their record against sort of other bottom end teams with bottom end records right now. And so and they haven't played a disproportionate number of those games. So there's a lot of wins to be picked up there just by them taking care of business against, the San Antonios and Detroits and of the world. That if they can, they're 4-4 against those teams right now. If they can just take care of those games, that's a lot of games that they can make up to sort of to climb the standings there. So, and I think that just getting that talent infusion of getting a top whatever player that Ja is, I think really that's probably the place where it'll show up most. So if one is an optimist, but again, that 5 games and 3 teams to pass is a lot.
Look, if you're telling me to put my money on the Warriors figuring it out and making the play-in or the Grizzlies, I'm gonna choose the Warriors. And I think that winds up being the race for the last play-in. I mean, man, what a weird season so far.